Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, in part 3 of the show each week, we talk about a cult classic, either TV series or movie that has left its landmark in terms of the industry, that's left its mark. Whether it's a 70s Western, maybe it's an 80s TV cop detective show, maybe it's a 90s horror, maybe it's a 2000s love story, or maybe it's a 2020 futuristic sort of dare I say, horror or world-ending sort of plot, which seems to be very much the norm now in terms of the current global pandemic that we've just come out of. And but we're going to talk about something in terms of a pandemic, but a vampire pandemic, dare I say, in terms of if you catch a cold, if you catch a sneeze, you might be coming down with a COVID, you might be coming down with teeth coming out of your jaws, and that was very much this case in terms of this TV series, B Wars, headlined by the one and only Ian Somerhalder and Adrian Holmes. It featured two buddies who went to, dare I say, a lab. Both got infected. One had a chromosome that led him to become a vampire. Another one didn't, and tried to sort of reason why this sort of happening. And dare I say, a global pandemic occurred, very much the one that we're sort of similaring in the world. And one of those people, dare I say, that got infected, no, she didn't catch COVID. She caught the vampire bug, dare I say, was one and only Ozerov Meyer. She played the character Ava O'Malley. And dare I say, if you went to any Irish pub of a Saturday night and you called out for an Ava O'Malley in the bar tap, you would probably have 6 or 7 hands coming up. The one and only Ozerov Meyer. And Sydney, may I ask, first of all, do you still have your fangs locked up in the wardrobe or in the sit room, or do you still have those prosthetic teeth? And do they wear them every Halloween when the trick-or-treaters come to the door?
I don't. I wish I did have them, but like half of the teeth for the bloods was CGI because it's like rows of shark teeth. So I only had a tiny little piece that was physical, and I didn't get to keep it.
And tell me about your vampire sort of look. Obviously, when you went vampire, one thing that struck me was the elements of your face. It almost you a good lot of sort of CG effects. So it wasn't just the teeth and the blood. They also did molding, dare I say, of the face to really give that sort of, dare I say, beastie sort of vampire look to go. But you weren't a blonde-haired sort of tomboy. You were very much, dare I say, a blonde-haired vampire tomboy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they did a full cast of my head before we started production. And yeah, every time that there was a change into being a blood, they put these like huge ridges on my cheeks and on my eyebrows just to kind of make that more pronounced. And then there was like CGI that was done after to our faces, like the way that they would unhinge our jaws and things. That was all CGI. But they did have physical kind of almost like fish-like gill ridges that they put around our face for those transformations.
And dare I say, I never seen a character or a character actress deal with the death of her father so well in terms of his memory. Dare I say, he died and then he was forgotten there soon after. It was all about ascendancy for Ava. She was dare I say, she wasn't sort of begrudging her vampirism. She was thinking about succession and sort of leading lines and chains of command. It wasn't, oh, pity me, I've become a vampire, I've lost my father. It was very much, let's go on, let's take the world and let's end the human race.
Yeah, it was amazing what they did with Ava's storyline. You know, like there were so many vampires that were upset about this, that were people that wanted to fix it. And Ava is just like extremely ambitious, and she's had a tough life. It was always just her and her dad. She didn't have a lot. And like when this happens and she loses her last connection to the human world, her father's dead, and then she has this newfound ability, she's like, maybe I can make something of this. Maybe I can become someone that I never had an opportunity to be before. So she takes it pretty well and like becomes very ambitious within that world of wanting to succeed, move up in ranks.
And dare I say, she always had that sort of leadership genes, but she almost feels sort of, as time goes on, she almost feels she wasn't happy with dare I say, holding still or sort of taking time off, if there wasn't sort of constant movement at the pace she liked, she got sort of frustrated, and she almost, her leadership, she always wanted that sort of real sort of animalistic general. When Michael Fayne sort of began to sort of loosen out in terms of his ambitions and leadership, she sort of lost interest in him, dare I say, fairly quick.
Yeah, absolutely. She definitely, I think, was raised to be very strong and independent and like take a leadership position. She's not afraid of anybody. And then when she sees this partnership that she thinks is going to be positive, she also is anticipating this attack on vampires much more than anyone else is. And she's like, we got to get ahead of it. You know, if we're on the offense, it's like, if we're on the defense, it's too late. We have to be on the offense. And she's trying to move that forward. And you know, I think she sees Michael kind of being manipulated in her eyes by a woman, and she's like, this has made you weak. This relationship has made you weak, and you're making poor decisions. Is there a bit of jealousy there? I think so. I always thought that Ava kind of had a thing for Michael and was a little upset.
Looking at the power couple, she saw a power couple, and this was someone that was trying to create what she trying to butt in and try and create a separate power couple in terms of what she was sort of seeking, in terms of that she wanted to be the queen and him as the king, dare I say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she feels that there were like promises made to her from Michael that they were going to be a team. She's his second in command. They're going to do this together. And then when that position kind of is just shifted over to another woman without any conversation, she is very upset and feels betrayed by that, and thinks like, this woman is a loose cannon. We need to like have a plan. And now you're abandoning that because you like this girl. And I think that just doesn't fly with her. There's no room for emotions in her decision making like that.
And Sydney, in terms of shooting, I know an awful lot of shooting was done in Toronto, Ontario. An awful lot of, nearly most of the cast, apart from Ian Somerhalder, is Canadian actors, Canadian actresses as such as well. And you have to be, dare I say, a lover of the sci-fi genre in terms of Canada, in terms of Vancouver, because you're going to be very much out of work if you're not, in terms of that sort of industry, dare I say. And was it the traditional audition process to land this gig in terms of V-Wars, in terms of, or had you tried out for a different sort of character and this character was recommended to you?
Ava was the first character that I went out for. I did an initial audition for it with just like the casting associate and me. And then like a month later, quite a bit later, I thought it had disappeared by that point, but I got a call to do a callback, and I went in, and like the director for episode 4, all their producers, showrunners, everyone was there, did a callback with them. And then like the next week I found out that I had booked Ava.
And
so it was Sydney, just 2 auditions. Yeah. And
Sydney, may I ask, I'm just looking at the video now and seeing the black hair, the sort of flowing locks running down your screen. What at the time, were you sort of blonde haired, or was a particular idea that you wanted for this Ava O'Malley character to be blonde haired? Did you have to dye your hair for the role?
Well, it was funny because I was shooting Shadowhunters at the time that I auditioned for this, and Shadowhunters dyed my hair from brown to blonde because the character in the book has like white hair. So they had dyed my hair blonde. So I auditioned for V-Wars with blonde hair, and like my roots were growing out. And so we didn't know what they were going to do. And they actually were like, we like that look with like the bottom being brown and then it's blonde. We think it's kind of like edgy for her. So they just wanted me to keep it. So we didn't touch it. We just left it.
You just left it. And Sydney, I know obviously V-Wars, one season, most people thought it would be renewed for more season. I know there was an awful lot of plans in the sort of pipeline, given the rush sort of ending in terms of how they try to close off so many sort of scenarios really, really fast in terms of the last episode and sort of such. When did you hear, was it towards the last shooting of the last episode or last 2 episodes that everything was going to be ceasing?
No, we actually had no idea. We shot the whole first season and everyone very much was like, okay, see you for season 2. And we left, and we didn't hear, like the show aired. And then I think it was a couple months after that the decision was made. Like, I think there were conversations after it aired about the possibility of it continuing forward or not. And then eventually it was not going to move forward anymore.
Mm. And obviously, you had an awful lot of ideas, and the director and producers had ideas. And had they discussed maybe ideas and roles in terms of where they were going to take your character in terms of season 2? Had they mentioned any possible spoilers or leaks to you in terms of the first 1 or 2 episodes, in terms of how things were? Because last we see Michael Fayne heading off in a jeep, surrounded, and dare I say, nothing more comes of that. So was there going to be a sort of, dare I say, mini renegade or something, where Fayne was going to be this sort of rebellious sort of fraction to sort of break free and be your rival, dare I say?
Yeah, there was like kind of conversations about, that it was almost like season 1 was kind of a prequel to the main story, like the action that built, and then season 2 was going to be the V War, like that was going to be the vampire war in season 2. And I think they were supposed to be basically, I team up with like the evil scientist who's putting the virus in the water and wants everyone to be a vampire. And I think it was going to be that like I team up with him, we have our own faction, and then Michael has his faction, and there's kind of a war against each other within the vampires and with the humans, like the vampires that want to work with the humans and befriend them, and the ones that are like, no, it's vampires or nothing at all. And there was going to be a separation there. So there's kind of like a 3-way fight that was going to be happening in season 2.
And Sydney, I know it's a busy time for you as well in terms of projects in the works. I do believe you've a TV series in production at the moment that might be coming our way here in Ireland and the UK.
Yes. I just finished filming a show called Beacon 23 that's based on some sci-fi novels as well. And it's going to be going to AMC Plus, and Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, Stefan James are our 2 leads, and it's going to be a really fun show.
And Sydney, for the final 30 seconds before I turn it over to you as well, is there any sort of funny story from your time on V Wars that's unique? I know there's probably hundreds given the season, 10 episodes, but any particular interaction with any sort of character within the show that sort of makes you laugh, maybe in between takes, maybe a blooper, maybe a funny sort of story, maybe a night out after sort of shooting as such, that still makes you laugh, maybe still makes you smile to this day when you sort of think of V Wars, and when you sort of, someone mentions the show to you, you say, oh yeah, I remember that particular moment or that particular day in question?
I feel like I definitely remember my first days on the show so much, and I don't think I'll ever forget them. I knew Ian Somerhalder was like hugely famous. People loved him, but I had never seen Vampire Diaries, and I was very intimidated by him in my head. I thought he was going to be scary. And my first day I arrived on set, he like came into the trailer and hugged me and was so welcoming, and wasn't filming any of his things that day, but as a producer was there to like say, to greet me. And the first scene we shot was that scene where I watched my father get killed. And like Adrian and Ian, everyone was just so lovely and supportive, and like the most welcoming set I've ever been on in my life. And I don't think I've had that same type of experience since. It was just an overwhelmingly positive set.
Okay. On that note, Sydney Ozerov Meyer, thanks for sharing your memories with us today. Playing the Irish character, dare I say, we'll just call her Irish anyway, given the name, whether she was Irish or not. We'll make Irish out of her, Ava O'Malley in V Wars, which came out in 2019, 2020 here in Ireland, UK. Sydney Ozerov Meyer played the character Ava O'Malley alongside Ian Somerhalder, Adrian Holmes, Jacky Lai, Kyle Gregoff, Peter Outerbridge, Michael Grey Eyes, and Laura Vandervoort. Sydney, thanks for joining us today. We wish you all the best with the other production in the line. Thanks for sharing your views and Into the Vault in this week's Cult Classic series, looking at V Wars. And hopefully, please God, the series gets rebooted in the near future, and we get to see that sort of vampire war, which we're all egging to see, whether good vampires can beat bad vampires.
Exactly. We're crossing our fingers for a reboot.
Cheers. Take care, Sydney.
Cheers. Thank you.